and that is the Philadelphia Eagles and Carson Wentz, who is not, it doesn't look pretty. Just being honest here, Carson Wentz
Yeah.
has struggled all season long. He is essentially 0-3. You didn't deserve to get out of there with a tie against the Bengals. You did, but a lot of people say a tie is worse than a loss.
I agree.
So you look at it in that way, you're 0-3, and that's not good. Wentz is yet to throw over 275 yards. He
And
has 6 interceptions on the year to only 3 touchdowns, and that is awful.
yeah, and you look at their next 3-game stretch, we could see them going 0-6. You got the 49ers, Steelers, and the Ravens next 3 weeks. That's going to be tough. That's going to be really tough. I think it's do or die for the Eagles and Carson Wentz. I definitely could see him losing his starting job in this next 3 weeks, given if they do go 0-6.
I mean, to be honest with you, man, I don't see them winning the game. I think if they don't beat the 49ers this week, there's no shot they beat the Steelers. I'll clip that when it happens. And then the Ravens. I mean, unless the Ravens just crap to bed again, then they're not getting out there with a win. I see their first
Yeah.
win coming in week 7 against the Giants. And
Yeah.
hey, honestly, you go 0-6, you may be looking at Jalen Hurts starting 1-2 in his career because he's going to play the Giants, the Cowboys, and then the Giants again. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking at the Philadelphia Eagles being 2-6, 2-7 around that middle of the year mark, and that's not good, obviously. But I would fully expect to see Jalen Hurts get some playing time soon, and I mean get some valuable snaps at quarterback, especially if Carson Wentz continues to double interceptions compared to touchdowns.
Yeah, and Carson Wentz is struggling. That's no surprise, or not surprise, but it's no shock. That he has been struggling this week, given no offensive firepower really behind him. But let's look at their defense, giving up 27 to probably the worst team in the league in Washington, 37 points to the Rams, and then last week tying with the Bengals. It's their defense is just doing as bad as their offense, if you ask me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you only have a handful of sacks on the year compared to what you realistically should be at, given who you've played. You've played the Bengals, who have a terrible offensive line. You have the Rams, probably not going to get a lot of sacks in that one. But then when you played against the Washington football team, I mean, those are not two great teams. For who you have on your defense, you should have a fairly decent amount of sacks. And you're looking at, I think, I'm going to find their sack leader is Brandon Graham with 3 on the season. So you're getting 1 sack per game from your arguably your number 1 defensive lineman, your number 1 defensive end. That's not going to get it done. So even with Carson Wentz struggling, if your defense is struggling too, then that just makes Wentz jobs harder.
Yeah, if you'd asked me on opening week, what going into week 4, what would I think the Eagles would be? I would have told you they'd have been 2-1. I think the Rams is a given loss, but as far as Washington and Cincinnati, those don't really make sense to me.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, it's hard to say, well, what's going wrong, without looking at Carson Wentz. Like,
Yeah.
This goes back to the same thing with Jameis Winston and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year. The Buccaneers defense didn't look good, but when you're turning the ball over 30 times in a season, 2 turnovers through the air per game, that's going to put a lot of strain on your defense because they're not getting the rest on the sideline like they need. They're not getting the good field position because there's a big difference in a punt and pinning them 40 yards back and throwing an interception.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you look at that alone, like that's going to force the defense to struggle. So, I mean, the root of all problems for the Eagles to me is Carson Wentz and lack of depth at the wide receiver position. I mean, their top two receivers are tight ends. And that's one reason why I had Zach Ertz in my starting for this week. But your top 2 receivers are tight ends. Like, that can't happen.
And they have been dealing with injuries on the offensive side of things this year. Miles Sanders, I think, missed week 1. No Alshon Jeffrey so far, who was traditionally, a pretty decent receiver. He always competes, puts up good numbers. But yeah, now Dallas Goedert's out, so you're really just looking at Zach Ertz this week. I mean, Miles Sanders. 49ers are going to shut the running game down, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's just going to put a lot of stress on Zach Ertz, I think.
Yeah, a lot of focus is going to be on uh, forcing Carson Wentz to beat them. I think you have a
By throwing,
quarterback
yeah.
exactly. You have a quarterback who struggled the first 3 weeks of the season, so why not attack that, shut down the run game, and force Carson Wentz to beat you?
Yep.
I think that's what Kyle Shanahan's going to look at doing for the 49ers. So it'll be fun. But yeah, Eagles are going to have to get it turned around pretty soon. But we'll see if they are able to figure that one out.